20 years ago today, the United States of America fell victim to several acts of terrorism. Let us take a moment of silence to remember those who have given their lives, those whose lives were taken, and the families of those who have fallen. The United States is home to millions of people with different backgrounds, and we here at GWE believe that is part of what makes a great nation. So, from all of us here, God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
Hello and welcome to the Global Women Enrichment podcast. Today we have Terry Gutierrez joining us, and she is a licensed mental health counselor and the director of counseling at an all-boys school, which is a middle school and a high school here in West Miami. And Terry, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? I mean, I know you've been in the industry for over 25 years, and so what does that all entail?
Thank you, Laura, and thank you so much for having me here. I think this is excellent, and the work that you're doing to empower women is wonderful, so I feel very grateful to be here with all of you today. Yes, like you said, I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida, and I've been working with children and families and adults for about 25 years now. My passion is working with children and teens. I love that age group. I love the potential there. And I'm very passionate about really promoting mental health and good emotional health as part of our total health. I think it's the foundation for everything else that we can build on. So the more that I can speak about that and help families and help young people, kind of take that as a priority and look out for themselves and take steps to keep their emotional health intact, the better I feel that the community, the society, everything will be impacted. The pandemic has been a tremendous stress for everyone in many different ways. And it's impacted everyone, whether you've had a personal experience with somebody who's been sick or has passed away, or just all the changes, all the lifestyle changes, everything that it came about. So if ever our mental health and our stress levels have been impacted, it's been over this past year and a half. So therapists, psychologists, social workers, doctors, they have really had to be on their A game because the need and the demand has been very high.
Right. So, having gone through the whole first year of the pandemic, let's call it, where everyone was trying to figure it all out and what to do, what not to do. Now, at least we got a little bit of our bearings because your school eventually went back full time. So what should parents expect and what can they do to ease that transition back into the school year during the ongoing pandemic?
Right. I think that's a great thing for parents to think about and to prepare themselves and their children. First, I think as a parent, you have to know your child. Is your child someone that's more quiet, more introverted, more shy? And the social reintegration is going to be a little bit of a difficulty. That might be where you have to put your focus and talk to them a little bit about how to start getting ready to adjust again to being in a group, into a classroom setting, into all the social and kind of peer situations that come up in a school. And if your child is the opposite, maybe very social and has been just itching to get back into the classroom and be back into their activities, then you might also need to look at, are they going to be able to keep up academically and make sure that they stay focused on their studies and not get sidetracked with trying to overcompensate for a year and a half of quarantining and lockdown, and now they're going to go too far into the social. So I think it's important to kind of know your audience, know who you have in your household, and then cater maybe the discussion or the conversation to each child according to what their needs might be. The other thing is to recognize that it is any change, any transition, even when it's a good one, can create some stress, can create some difficulty. So there might be some anxiety about going back. It's always a little bit of anxiety after the summer and we have to go back to school. So this is going to be maybe multiplied for kids that have been home and homeschooling for all this time. So talk about that with your child and let them know it's perfectly normal to maybe feel a little bit uncomfortable or to maybe have some nerves or some questions or some worries about going back. And then knowledge is power. Prepare them as best you can. If it's possible to reach out to the school ahead of time in the days or the week before school starts and speak to the teacher and get an idea what kind of protocols are going to be in place, what's the classroom physically going to look like, is there going to be spacing, masks, different lunch procedure, different dismissal procedure, all those little nuts and bolts make up a day for a child in school. The more information you have about that and the more you can share that with your child to just have them ready and prepared, the better, because that does calm fears. And having that knowledge gives you a sense of being in control, and that brings down the anxiety. So that I would say would be like the first line of defense.
So once the kids are back in school, and especially for those that did virtual all of last year, what are some of the things that parents can look out for that might be red flags that they normally would not have looked out for? Or maybe some of the things that kids might be coming to your team to talk about that parents should be on the lookout for?
Sure. I think sometimes because of the health questions around the pandemic, there might be some fears. Some kids might have questions about, am I going to get sick? Is my friend going to get sick? What's going to happen if somebody has COVID? So there might be some fears about that. And then explaining to them that we're doing everything that we feel is best in our family to protect you and to keep you healthy and safe. And reassuring, especially younger children, that it's not their job to worry about all of those factors, that the adults in their life are the responsible ones, and they are going to take care of that health and safety kind of procedures for them, to remove that burden from them. So to reassure them that yes, that the health and safety is the priority, but that we are taking steps. All the adults in your life, your teachers, your parents, your community members are taking the necessary steps to keep you healthy and safe. So maybe looking out for that, maybe fear or anxiety. And then the other thing would be just maybe also some changes with coming back into a classroom. Sometimes socially, there's some difficulties with getting together with friends again or making friends, or if you've been isolated for a while, just that social reintegration might be a little bit challenging.
Right.
So just looking out, is your child acting different? Are they complaining? Do they seem down? Is there any changes in their mood, in their appetite, in their sleep patterns, things like that that would indicate that something's just not right? And then you would want to ask them about that and seek professional help if you needed to.
Would you say that during the pandemic, you've had an increase of students reaching out to you for counseling versus pre-pandemic?
Correct. Absolutely. Both students and adults. I think the students' issues were different, especially for the teenagers. It was a huge blow to not be able to see their friends. And at that age, friends are their life, and that's everything. And if they had, a group of friends through their sports that they played or through their activities, extracurricular activities, and they had lost that was a huge loss. So there was loneliness and isolation and boredom. And then also being home all day long with your parents can create some conflict. Teenagers and parents, just naturally by default of the stage that they're in, tend to have some disagreements, and there's usually a little rub there. So then, magnify that by, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that those kind of conflicts also came up. So those were some of the more common issues that the teenagers, the kids were dealing with during this lockdown quarantine time.
So I would imagine that you not only counsel the students, you also have to counsel the parents, depending on what's going on with the students, correct?
Absolutely. I think the parents, even though sometimes it feels like our teenagers don't listen to us, I think the parents have tremendous power and tremendous potential to enact a positive change. And a lot of the work with the parents and with the adults, and I have to remind myself of this all the time as a parent because I fall prey to this all the time, is that we also tend to pass our own anxiety, our own stress, our own fears onto our kids. Sometimes knowingly and sometimes not knowingly. Sometimes it's just the attitude that we have or the disposition that we're giving off, and our kids are very perceptive and they pick that up right away. So sometimes it's allowing the adults and the parents to talk through their own stuff, their own concerns, their own fears. And then once they're feeling a little bit more relaxed and under control, then they're going to create a more warm, a more supportive environment for the children, and the kids and the teens react accordingly.
Right. And I'm going to be very silly now, as Laura know I can be sometimes.
Great. I like silly.
Have you ever had to counsel Laura?
That's a great question. I don't know. Have I? I think so. Yes. And Laura's probably counseled me many a time. Yes. When we're in the trenches, us mothers have to stick together and vent to each other and get all the help we can. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yes. And so, we've been talking a lot about what you do as the director of counseling at the school that you're at, but you also have your private practice. Can you share with us a little bit about, who you cater to in your private practice? And, if our audience wanted to reach out to you, what are the things that you could help them with?
Sure, definitely. In the private practice, I'm able to see adolescents, children, and adults. And currently, during the pandemic, what I have received much more demand from is adults. And like we were saying, anytime there's a change, adults are impacted as well. And there's been, financial strain because a lot of people have lost their jobs or have had to change careers or have had other issues that are economic in nature. There's been a lot of relationship situations because perhaps there was problems with a partner and now you're home all day long with that partner. So that just shines the light on that issue. So it was a potential to really bring a lot of healing and a lot of good things because it did really put a spotlight on problems or on situations that maybe people were ignoring for a bit. But then that does, with all that growth and healing, is a little bit of discomfort. So definitely that's been a big issue. And there's been more demand, I think, for mental health and for emotional health.
Absolutely.
And there's also been some grief and loss. There's been, unfortunately, many lives lost and many things besides people, also relationships and jobs and a lot of loss. So that's also created a need for counseling.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
Terry, may I ask you, what was the driving factor to make you go into this position? Into
counseling in general. Mm-hmm. I'm addicted to that moment when the light bulb goes off for each person. And I think we all have that one moment. It's like that cathartic moment where you've maybe been suffering with something or dealing with a heavy burden. And then you finally get to that moment where it's like the light bulb turns on or the healing happens to a certain degree. And it's just a letting go of all that pain and suffering that maybe you've been carrying around for many years. And that moment, I don't know, and I guess a teacher sees that when a student maybe learns something new, a small child learns to read. It's kind of similar to that. When you could witness that moment in another human being, to me, is just miraculous. So I love that.
Right. And I'm going to be silly to you too, because everybody knows by now that I'm a Lifetime movie person.
She loves Lifetime.
Oh, okay, great.
So I'm going to ask you, because counseling, psychologists, psychiatrists, all of that tie into one, correct? So have you ever had to seek counseling for yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. and I'm glad you asked me that. Okay. I'm a huge proponent of seeking mental health treatment. I think it's preventative, and I think it can also be, very, very important part of our total health. I really strongly want to fight against the stigma that exists right now about mental health. I think we're better, but a lot of what I try to do in the community is to break that stigma and to normalize getting help. It's just like going to your doctor for your physical every year or going to a dentist for cleaning. It's the same thing.
Right.
And it's the foundation of everything else. When our mental health is good and sound, physically, we feel better. We take better steps to take care of our health. We eat better. We exercise. We have better, happier relationships. So it impacts everything.
Right. So I'm not sure whether or not you've been looking at the Olympics, but if you have Simone Biles, she decided to put herself over everything else. Do you have any thoughts about that? Because I know she received flack from some people. So what are your thoughts on that?
I did see that. I was very excited to see somebody that has that level of popularity that people can see stand up and be a role model for taking care of her mental health first. At first, when the story broke, I didn't know the details. I didn't know what it was about, and I did hear some negative. But then after, when it came out that it was more of a decision for her and to look out for her mental health, I saw a lot of support in the community and on social media and in the media for her, and I thought that was excellent. And I love the Olympics, and I love to follow the stories. And I think that what those athletes do is tremendous, and none of us could even do, 1/4 of it. So somebody in that platform to take a stand for mental health was, I think, fantastic.
Awesome.
Yes. So tying in, talking about sports, what tips do you have for the parents of those kids that have been going through the pandemic and also have the added stress of being in sports and competing? Is there anything other than what you've shared that a parent of an athlete should keep in mind?
In regards to maybe if they have concerns about missing out on some time of practice or that their competitive edge will maybe be decreased. I know that there's a lot of, and even academically, there's been a lot of concern about parents. Oh, is my child going to lose learning and get behind? I'd like to just reiterate that I think we need to take a little bit of a step back. Sometimes we get so caught up in the moment and we just see things very small through a very small filter. And throughout history, because of different things that have happened in the world, wars, changes, global, incidents, children have been out of school sometimes for years, months, and everyone has been okay. So sometimes we get a little too big for our britches. We have to just take a step back and say, everyone will survive, everyone will catch up, and it's a global pandemic. So everyone's on the same playing field. And I think the positive side of this for our kids and for this generation, and I've been seeing it at my work, and I've been saying it, this generation is going to be so well prepared for life. They have this adaptability and flexibility that my generation did not have. They've had to overcome and flip and change and do this and do that. They're extremely technologically savvy. They have created these resilience skills that you can't teach somebody unless they go through it and they've had to go through an experience. Exactly. So that's an advantage to them. This generation is going to be amazing. I can't wait to see what they're going to do when they get a little bit older. But this experience, it's been a terrible situation, but it really has a flip side, which I think is going to be very positive, and we'll see that in the years to come.
Yeah, agreed. I was thinking about the other day that this is the first generation that in their schooling has been taught how to remote work. So when they move into their careers, of course, they're going to want to, have the camaraderie of being in the office, but they've already learned how to remote work. So, one final question for you from a parent's perspective in education is we have a lot of parents that are now moving in with their children that are seniors this year and looking at, colleges and universities during a time when some of them haven't been able to even tour. So what kind of suggestions or tips are you giving your students and parents that are now going into I've got to apply for college, and it's a little bit different than what it's been in the past?
Right. And I'm not the expert on the college admission process, but I can tell you in general that the one thing that this has forced us to do is think outside the box and be creative. So colleges are doing virtual tours. They're doing virtual visits to campuses. They're giving all kinds of information through the computer digitally that we would have never thought before was possible. Yeah. So you can get as close to that experience, and maybe sometimes even better, because they're probably going to expose you or show you things about the campus or the college life that you might not have gotten in a regular college visit. Right. So you can get as much information that way as possible. And then again, always to remind ourselves that nothing is permanent and forever. And if you do choose a college or your child goes away to a school and they're not happy and it's not a good fit, change is always possible. So it's not a life sentence.
Exactly. So as we're closing up, what final thoughts would you want to share with our audience? And of course, don't forget to share how they can get a hold of you if they'd like to touch base.
Right. Absolutely. I have an Instagram account that's headstrong_counseling. And you can follow me there, and you can also direct message me if you'd like to have a phone consultation or try to schedule an appointment. And my final thoughts, I think, would be that let's prepare ourselves with as much information and knowledge as we can for the new school year. And let's validate our children that they have already inside of them everything that they need to face whatever's going to come their way this school year. What they've already been through has been much more challenging. So we can point to evidence that of things that they've already been through. You can think of identifying specific things that they've done already that has shown how flexible they are, how resilient they are, how resourceful they are in getting help, and use that evidence to bolster them and to tell them, you're ready. You're ready to go back to school because whatever comes your way, you already have inside of you what you need to deal with it. And we're right here with you to get through it together.
Terry, thank you. Every time we talk, I learn something new, and today is no exception. Audience, we love hearing from you. So many of our topics come from what you tell us you want us to talk about and share with you. So don't forget to reach out, follow us on YouTube, and importantly, reach out to us at gwenrichment.com. Until next time, take care.